Long ago, in the time when the world was still young, wisdom was not scattered among people as it is today. Instead, all the knowledge, cleverness, and understanding of the world belonged to one being, Niam, the sky god. He watched over the world, knowing all its secrets, the ways of nature, the art of storytelling, and the wisdom of kings. One day, Niam decided that it was time to pass this wisdom on. But instead of giving it to everyone, he gathered it all into a single clay pot, a pot brimming with the knowledge of the stars, the rivers, and even the ways of the human heart. And to whom did he entrust this precious gift? None other than Anansi. "Take this pot," Niam said. "Use its wisdom well and let it guide you." Anansi accepted the gift with eager hands, but as he peered into the pot, an idea began to form in his clever little mind. Why should I share this wisdom with others? If I keep it all to myself, I will be the wisest of all creatures. I will have power over kings, over men, even over the gods themselves. And so, instead of using the wisdom to help others, Anansi hatched a plan, one that would ensure he kept every bit of it for himself. In the land of Ghana, where stories are passed down like treasures from one generation to the next, there's one name that always stands out: Anansi, the clever spider. He is known for his tricks, his cunning ways, and his never-ending thirst for getting the upper hand. But what happens when Anansi is given the greatest gift of all, the gift of wisdom? This is a tale of greed, folly, and an unexpected lesson about what it truly means to be wise. But before we begin, ask yourself, if you had all the wisdom in the world, what would you do with it? Anansi could hardly contain his excitement. The pot of wisdom was his and his alone. But as he looked around, a new thought crept into his mind. What if someone tries to take it from me? He needed a place to hide it, a place so high and unreachable that no one, not even clever Steve, could ever find it. Then he spotted the tallest tree in the forest. Its trunk stretched high into the sky, its branches reaching toward the heavens. Yes, Anansi thought, if I hide the pot at the very top, no one will ever get to it but me. So with great care, he tied the clay pot to his belly with a strong vine. He stretched his 8 legs and began to climb. But there was a problem. Each time he tried to pull himself up, the pot got in the way. It banged against the tree, making his climb clumsy and difficult. He struggled, slipping and sliding, grunting in frustration. Down below, watching all of this, was Anansi's young son, Nkuma. He tilted his head in curiosity, puzzled by his father's strange behavior. "Father," Nkuma called out, "why don't you tie the pot to your back instead of your front? That way, it won't be in your way when you climb." Anansi froze. His many legs stopped moving. His eyes widened in disbelief. How had he not thought of that himself? Here he was, holding all the wisdom in the world, and yet his own son, who had none of it, had just given him the simplest, smartest idea. A wave of embarrassment and anger surged through Anansi. How could mere child outthink him? His grip tightened around the pot as frustration boiled inside him. And that's when everything went terribly wrong. Anansi's pride burned hotter than the midday sun. How could his own son, who possessed no wisdom at all, outsmart him so easily? He had been given the great gift of knowledge, yet he had failed to think of something so simple. In a fit of frustration, Anansi yanked at the vine holding the pot to his belly, intending to tie it to his back instead. But in his haste, his clumsy legs fumbled with the knot. The pot wobbled dangerously. Before he could react, it slipped. For a moment, time seemed to slow. Anansi watched in horror as the clay pot tumbled from his grasp. It spun in the air, crashing against the trunk of the great tree. Crack! The pot shattered into 1,000 tiny pieces. A mighty wind howled through the forest, carrying the scattered bits of wisdom far and wide. The knowledge that had once belonged only to Anansi was now free, floating on the breeze, slipping into the rivers, seeping into the soil, and spreading to every corner of the world. Anansi scrambled down the tree, his many legs moving in a frantic blur. He tried to scoop up the pieces, but it was too late. The wisdom was gone. Anansi stood among the broken shards of the pot, his many legs trembling with frustration. He had been so close to keeping all the wisdom in the world for himself. But now it was gone, scattered like leaves in the wind. The animals of the forest began to act with new cleverness. The birds learned to weave their nests with greater skill. The fish in the rivers found new ways to escape predators. Even the humans, who had once been simple, now spoke with wisdom, built great villages, and told stories that carried lessons deeper than the oceans. Anansi sighed. He had tried to hoard wisdom, but in the end it had spread to everyone. Niam, the sky god, who had been watching all along, chuckled from above. "Foolish Anansi," he said. "Wisdom was never meant for one. It was meant for all." Realizing he had lost his chance to be the wisest of all, Anansi did the only thing he could do. He laughed, a deep, knowing laugh that echoed through the trees. He had learned a lesson, even if it was not the one he had planned. From that day on, Anansi remained clever, but he never tried to hoard wisdom again. Instead, he used his trickery to teach, weaving stories that carried lessons for all who would listen. And so, the tradition of storytelling, of passing down wisdom through tales, was born. Wisdom is meant to be shared, not hoarded. No one person can possess all the knowledge in the world, and true wisdom comes from learning from others. Do you share the knowledge you have, or do you try to keep it to yourself? Have you ever learned something valuable from someone younger or less experienced than you? How can you use your wisdom to help those around you? And so, the story of Anansi and the pot of wisdom lives on, a reminder that the greatest wisdom is not in keeping knowledge to oneself, but in spreading it far and wide. As he looked around, he saw the world changing before his eyes.